So let's start about how you ended up on GMV.
Okay. So I actually started with WSET in the Danville Bureau for about 2 years, and then gradually they asked for me to come up to the main Lynchburg newsroom. At that point, I was already filling in anchoring, and I reported and filled in anchoring for a couple years until an opening came up on GMV that they were hiring for a co-anchor with you, and they presented a contract. And so I think from 2012 to 2015, I was on Good Morning Virginia.
And you were, single, you were young, in your 20s, and they said, okay, guess what? You get to come in at 4 in the morning, and which means you're going to go to bed at 7:30 at night. How was that for you?
So for me, I've never actually been a huge night owl. So I was never the person in the 20s that wanted to stay out until the middle of the night. I mean, I like to go home at a certain time. So that wasn't too bad for me. It definitely worked for, I'm trying to think, I don't want to talk about John's schedule because we weren't married at that point. But I guess I had filled in on a lot of different shows. I'd filled in on the evenings, I'd filled in on the weekends, I'd filled in on Good Morning Virginia. And even though the early morning hours were tough, it was my favorite group of people to be with. I loved them. I loved working with you, Pattie. I loved all the production crew. So, and I liked ending my day at 12:30. I mean, you have the whole rest of the day to spend your time however you wanted. So there are some perks there.
I may have already touched on it, but what was the hardest part? Was it the getting up? What was the hardest part of this?
I never fully adjusted to the schedule. I got into some pretty good rhythms every now and then, but if you had anything come up, you had a weekend out of town for something you needed to be at, or something in the evening that you couldn't say no to, I did really struggle with the sleep, and I don't think I could have done it longer than I did, but that was probably the hardest thing for me, was just the sleep schedule.
And you may have mentioned it when you talked about getting up, but what was your best part of doing that?
I just remember, there was such feeling. I filled in on every show that we had, and I just always felt like there was such a lighthearted spirit with the morning crew. I mean, news can be tough, can be stressful, and sometimes downright depressing. And there was just always something about the group, the Good Morning Virginia group, that just had more of an airy feel to it. Despite all that was going on, we could find ways to laugh and joke around with each other. And so I really did enjoy the time I was here, albeit the early morning hours were kind of hard.
And talk a little bit about what you've been doing.
So in 2015, I did not renew my contract. I had gotten married the year before, and we wanted to start a family, and didn't really think that the getting up at 2:30 in the morning was gonna work for us in pursuing having a family. So 2015, I ended up moving on to Liberty University, and I was there for about 7 months, and then I moved on to Lynchburg Living Magazine. I was the managing editor there for 6 years, and now I am the public information officer in Bedford County. So I get to kind of pull a lot from my media skill set, public speaking, press releases, all of that in that role.
All right, I'm going to flip back now.
Yeah.
What was one of your, I don't know if I would call it a favorite moment, a favorite story that had to do with GMV? Like, what stands out in your mind? Or maybe it was something we got out to people one morning, whether it was a serious story or lighthearted.
I think the story that I remember the most, that was the most jarring, was right before I left. My last week, Allison and Adam at Channel 7 were shot and killed when they were reporting, and we were on the same shift as them. So although I did not know them personally, you feel this camaraderie with people who are only an hour away doing the same thing that you're doing. And you and I were in the newsroom that morning when all that information was coming in, and we're starting to find all these details out, and it was just almost like unbelievable. And I remember just the whole rest of that week, and my last day was that Friday, and I believe that shooting was on a Wednesday or earlier in the week, and I just remember that. Just leaving on that note, unfortunately, just that sadness we all felt, for our friends down the road. That was probably the most memorable story I remember, and it happened to be 2 days before, the end of my contract. So it really just made you think, about anything can happen, no matter what profession you're in. So.
Anything that people who are out there may not know that's going on behind the scenes that you and I may have had some laughs over, or is there anything going on that people may that was going on while y'all were live on air?
you and I were a good match because I feel like we did not take ourselves very seriously. We probably could have taken ourselves more seriously sometimes, but I just remember, in the mornings, your time is so limited. By the time you get out of bed and you get here, you're trying to make that as quick as possible because you don't want to get up any earlier. You don't want to get up earlier than 2:30 or whatever. So I just remember we'd bring our breakfast in. We'd throw our makeup on, it'd be like, we'd be halfway through the show at 6 and I've been up since 2:30 and I'm like, I haven't eaten yet. And so I'd be trying to, on a commercial break, eat a little bit and then put it back and like, oh, Shelley, stand by. And I'm like chewing. I'm like, wait. And, you're over there laughing. I just remember our bloopers, and because GMV is so lighthearted already, I feel like the bloopers were even funnier. The laughs would last longer to the point where you and I would have to compose ourselves. I'm like, Pattie, I don't know if I could do it. But we somehow, I don't think we ever completely lost it. Did we? Did we ever?
I'm sure we did.
Okay. Yeah, we probably did.
I think the tiredness sort of enhances
the
inability to control yourself.
That's you're 100% right. But I just remember getting so tickled about something, and then we'd bring it up every day for the next 6 months. It was like an inside joke.
Yes,
so
we still do.
Everybody was always very okay to take a joke on themselves. The egos were a little bit deflated here. We were like, oh, I messed up, and I think that just made it easier because this is a profession where you guys make mistakes, and they're very public. So it's good to have the laughs about them.
We don't make that mistakes. You were here. It's been 8 years, and there was social media. Things were going then, but nothing like it is now. I mean, do you see, what do you see as, do you feel like it would feel like the same job these days as it was?
No, I've thought about that because I will admit that I would take the mean comments from the public personally to the point where that was a small factor in not renewing my contract. My husband was like, do you really want to, is this the best for you? And that was something that I thought about. Do I want to, get mean emails and wake up to them, in the morning, which, would happen occasionally, for everybody who's in the public eye. I do think about that now because you're even more, opened up to that scrutiny and putting yourself out there on social media, and people are, keyboard bullies, and I don't know how you do it, but it definitely has changed a lot. Our world is a lot more polarized with news and all of that, and I know you all in the newsroom just have to navigate that daily. So it's changed a lot in 8 years, and I've just seen that from watching at home and watching on social media.